Lois Lane gets superpowers. Some of you may know that Lois Lane was DC Comics' first Superwoman, which is why you'll see that reference throughout DC Comics history, because that happened to Lois more than once. You have things like Grant Morrison's reference to All-Star Superman, Joshua Williamson during the DC All-In Superman era, but when Lois got powers, she also sometimes got to play with some other aliases, and some of them come from stories so unhinged they deserve their own spotlight. So it is with the tale of Lois Lane as Krypton Girl. There is a little super dash woman on the cover, but she goes mainly by Krypton Girl, so it's gonna get its own special thing. I'm Sasha, this is Casually Comics, and this story is bonkers in the most entertaining way. The story we're about to look at comes from Superman's Girlfriend Lois Lane number 47 from the year 1964. So deep in the Silver Age, we have a Kurt Schaffenberger cover, which features the story we're gonna be looking at. It's the cover story, even though it's the last one in the issue, but it's first in my heart. The story is the super life of Lois Lane. It seems like this may have been a Leo Dorfman story, and it has Kurt Schaffenberger art. Clark Kent, you turned me into a giantess by exposing me to Red Kryptonite. Now make sure you'll never pester me again. I'll project you into the Phantom Zone forever. Featuring a great imaginary story. If Lois Lane were a superwoman, wink wink, and Clark Kent just an ordinary man. So this story lets you know right away that you're dealing with an imaginary tale. However, it's one of those interesting ones where the frame isn't necessarily a dream or somebody got knocked out, but rather something that's aged quite well because of the advances in technology, which is Lois Lane watching a simulation on Superman's computer in the fortress after she inputs information into it. She's running an AI sim, basically. What's interesting, though, is that even though most of the events are imaginary, the frame is not, so it's one of those kind of canonical stories. It's only the fact that Krypton Girl is inside the simulation. You'll see after this if you want to see more of Krypton Girl. Now, if you've been here a while, you'll know that one of the things that Kurt Schaffenberger did when he started drawing Lois was give her much more of a range of expression on her face. And that included a lot of manipulative and wicked and cunning faces because she's always scheming against Superman. And because in this story, Lois and Clark's roles are a little reversed, those faces go to Clark, and it's great.
This is it. If these sharp scissors are unable to cut through a lock of Lois's hair, it will prove once and for all that Lois Lane is the secret identity of Krypton Girl.
Darn it, here comes that pest Clark Kent again with another test to try and prove I'm Krypton Girl. I'm gonna have to think fast or my secret identity won't be secret much longer. This story proper opens on something that's almost a date for Superman and Lois, a rarity for this comic called Superman's Girlfriend Lois Lane. She's waiting for him to take her to the fortress to see his trophies, which is something that he does do. He will just show his trophies, but the fact that she's there waiting, it has almost a kind of date aura, and he almost stood her up. It's just because it doesn't say that she's writing a piece on anything there, which is sometimes why she goes, but sometimes he just brings her there too. And like most times, he just ditches her as soon as they get there. Superman flies Lois to his headquarters where
I'll be busy on some experiments. Meanwhile, study the supercomputer. It can solve any problem for you. Just learn those instructions. Lois, learn to code.
I simply feed the vital facts into the machine and type out the problem on the instruction tape. The device does the rest. Now, in a truly stunning moment for one of these stories, the problem that Lois has the computer solve isn't how she's going to marry Superman. Instead, after feeding it the info that it needs to project the simulation, she decides to ask what would it be like if she had come from Krypton? Why? Why not? As Lois presses the button activating the supercomputer, that girl in the super costume, she's streaking down past the Daily Planet building. She resembles me. Strangely, I wonder if... Suddenly, the machine flashes an answer to Lois's unspoken question, because she's gasping in her mind. Attention, you are now viewing Krypton Girl as she returns from a vital mission and resumes her secret life as reporter Lois Lane. According to the computer, if I came from Krypton, I'd be called Krypton Girl, because the name Supergirl's already taken, and work at the Daily Planet in my secret identity of Lois Lane.
I really want to know what the parameters that she fed into the computer were.
This is like one of those character AI programs where you want to talk to a fictional character, but you could input the settings into it. So in that way, you can end up with something truly zany. As Lois watches this play out, she sees that the computer has cast Clark Kent into her role, meaning that Clark is always trying to figure out who Krypton Girl really is.
And computer Clark is a menace. He needs to be stopped.
He starts off at about a 5 on the Lois sneaking and manipulating scale and then jumps straight to 11. Like, we go from him trying to find an excuse to cut her hair, which shouldn't be possible with normal scissors, to him locking them inside a bank vault, an airtight one, and then pretending that he's going to suffocate.
This is awful. There's no alarm system inside the vault. We'll use up the oxygen and suffocate before they rescue us.
What an act. Clark is trying to force me to reveal my Krypton Girl identity, but since he can't be sure I'm super, he must have taken some safety precautions. One would hope. My X-ray vision detects a miniature radio and a specially shaped oxygen tank under Clark's jacket, so he wants to play a trick, say.
I'm so impressed. All of the effort going into this.
Clark wants that byline. You know, in the first Superwoman story where she's envisioning that relationship with her and Clark, Clark's also very mercenary there. He just straight out outs her identity as soon as he finds it out. Now, as for this story, if virtual Clark is at about an 11, then virtual Lois is at maybe a 15. I'll scare him by putting on the panic act. Help, help, let me out of here, I don't want to die.
If she is Krypton Girl, why is she getting so upset? Maybe I've been wrong about her. I'd better release some oxygen.
As Lois pretends to black out.
Lois, speak to me.
I'll teach him a lesson he won't forget. I'll slip my hand super gently under his jacket and squeeze the valve of his oxygen tank shut with my super strength. It's a good thing the next line is right down there because that pause. Soon.
I can't revive her. She needs air. I'll open this oxygen tank and... The valve is jammed. It can't open.
Lois's face in the back. The computer knows her too well. It identified her and Clark's mutual manipulation kink.
Lucky I have this miniature walkie-talkie with me. It's tuned to the police radio frequency. I'll alert them now. Clark Kent calling Metropolis Police. Calling police headquarters. Do you read me?
I sneaked those transistors out of that radio so super gently he never felt it. As the radio fails to work.
Calling the Metropolis Police. This is Clark Kent. We're sealed in a vault. Answer me, please.
I'd better get these transistors out of sight. I'll just eat them. The ground glass is harmless to me. I lose it every time at the I'll eat them. Just with Clark panicking in the foreground. It's as good as whenever Clark eats kryptonite. So would this series be Krypton Girl's boyfriend Clark Kent? I kind of want to read more adventures. They're a disaster. Tense moments later.
The radio won't work. Help, help. Doesn't anyone hear me out there? You can't let us die in here.
I'd better see about getting us out of here before poor Clark blows his stack completely. I feel like Lois is getting maybe a bit more glee out of this than Superman normally does in a real world scenario in these stories. Maybe it's just the way her expression is drawn. It just really looks like she dislikes him. She does pierce a pipe so that the burglar alarm goes off, and once they're saved, seeing that a hole was pierced, Clark is on the case once more. You know, now that death is no longer an imminent threat, sometimes you just need a little bit of a thrill to feel alive. That's the fun aspect of their relationship, I guess. My favorite part about this is that if Clark had been wrong and any part of his equipment had really malfunctioned, they'd be dead. Now that's commitment. In this simulation, Lois quits her job to get away from Clark. The next day in the planet office, here's my resignation, Perry. I'm quitting because I'm sick of Clark's always trying to prove I'm Krypton Girl. He's become a pest. Good grief. In this super life, I quit the planet. Then if Clark Kent is actually Superman, my hounding him may force him to quit his job as a reporter someday. Nah, Clark won't quit. He enjoys messing with Lois too much. It's the little things, like gaslighting your alleged girlfriend to thinking that she has superpowers, or using her as bait for the mob. Lois still needs a job though, and she gets one doing commercials, but she can't escape from Clark. But the next day... Clark Kent, what are you doing here?
Perry fired me because I made you quit, so I got a job as news editor on this station. Glad we're working together again, Lois.
Oh, that's a question.
Glad we're working together again, Lois?
Who's doing all the reporting for the Daily Planet now? It's Jimmy Olsen, isn't it? It's all Jimmy all the time. He's the real winner of this simulation. Working together again? Oh no, this is too much for flesh and blood to bear.
I'll bet I know what makes her so jittery. She's afraid I'm closing in on her Krypton Girl identity.
He's not even a reporter at the moment. I guess this scoop could get him his job back, but that's not how it's framed. Virtual Clark is crazed. Look at his face when he learns of a disaster that will require Krypton Girl. That evening on the news ticker, attention Krypton Girl, Coast Guard reports passenger liner sinking on Skull Reef. Hundreds in danger. Please report to scene at once.
Oh, this is an emergency only Krypton Girl can handle. Lois will have to go into action now. The glee, his eyes are sparkling.
Lois has to be a bit clever with this one because they work right there in front of each other and there's no closet for her to run to or anything. And so she's contacted telepathically by Lori Lemaris, who, if you've been on this channel for a while, you'll know was Superman's first serious girlfriend. The one he was going to marry even after he found out she was a mermaid. She knew his secret identity, everything, but then she married somebody else. He's not entirely over it. But in this simulation, Lori contacts Lois to let her know that the Legion was looking in on her and they sent Night Girl back in time to deal with it because they saw that she couldn't get away. And Night Girl has superpowers at night. My question about this is, did the computer give Lois and Lori the same backstory?
Kinda hope so.
What happens next is one of the more baffling moments of this story, which is that Krypton Girl takes Clark to her Fortress of Solitude. But why though? In this story, it's just been presented that she really dislikes him. There's no reason for her to take him there, especially because he's not a reporter anymore. The computer couldn't extrapolate. It got stuck in the patterns. Oftentimes in these stories, when Clark brings Lois to the fortress, it's to teach her a lesson in some way, like that time when his Superman robot spanked her, but this is not that. Here it looks like she's just showing him her stuff. And while he's there, Clark steals some red K to use to see if it has an effect on her. Also, the descriptions on the red K that are shown there are accurate. Those things did happen to Superman. Clark gets real creative about how to get this red K onto Lois, because he knows that she's always on guard around him. That's the kind of relationship they have. Constant tension. Meanwhile, in a nearby alley, Clark puts the final touches on his clever plot.
My plan can't miss. I'll dust this red K I took from the fortress over my Santa costume and park myself near the entrance of the TV station where Lois will be forced to pass me. If that red K affects her, it will prove she's Krypton Girl.
You're gonna get fired from this job too, Clark. But as Lois leaves for her apartment, they're starting the Christmas collections early this year. I'll do my bit with a contribution.
Lois got a good dose of that red kryptonite dust. It should take effect within an hour.
Oh, this was for charity? He better actually give that to the charity. Clark! Also, he has no idea what's gonna happen. You saw the one label said that she turned into a dragon. He could have just killed hundreds, but that's okay, because he would have proved that she's Krypton Girl. Next moment, Clark, he's sneaking out. That suit explains the guilty look on his face. My microscopic vision shows it's dusted with red K. I really do love the expressions in this issue. They're really evocative. Clark just looks so disheveled in this panel. I'm very invested in this. The transformation is that Lois gets giant, and thanks to the wonders of red K, so is her costume. And giant Lois is done with Clark. As Lois pursues Clark into the streets, the red K effect enlarges her costume, and the projector.
I exposed Lois to red kryptonite, and you've turned into a giantess. That proves you're Krypton Girl.
Yes, Clark. I was thinking about a wicked giant, so the red K turned me into a wicked giantess. Now I'll make sure you'll never pester me again. I'll project you into the Phantom Zone forever.
No, no, no!
And so Clark was brutally murdered by the denizens of the Phantom Zone. Or, given how cunning this version is, he rose up to become their leader. Sequel when? As Lois turns off the computer, which predicted the other life she might have led if she were super, Clark got just what he deserved when he was sent to the Phantom Zone. It serves him right for interfering with my career as Krypton Girl. Oh no, the computer's right. Wait, what career? What I saw were just imaginary events that could only have happened if I were super. Clark's actions were no worse than my suspicious behavior toward him in real life. If Clark is Superman, then I'm hindering his career by trying to uncover his secret identity. What a heel I've been. Wait a minute. This was Superman's computer. Was this whole thing a psyop to teach Lois a lesson? A way to get her to stop bothering him? I say no, because this is the Silver Age, so if that was the case, he would appear to brag about it. Or at least there'd be a thought balloon of him bragging about it. Still, it would make sense. Also, I'm pretty sure that giant Lois in heels coming to punish Clark awakens something in someone. Lois feels guilty. She realizes it's time to leave poor Clark alone, and that's why this was the last issue of Superman's Girlfriend Lois. No, it wasn't. By the next issue, she's already making bets with him to see if she can uncover his secret identity. This issue is very entertaining. It's having a bit of fun poking at some of the tropes that these stories use, and it's dialing them way up, which can be fun to read, especially if you've read a lot of these. It is still a let's teach Lois a lesson story, but without a condescending Superman doing it, it comes across as less callous. The swap of expressions from Clark and Lois is also very enjoyable, and there's just something off the rails about this story because of some of the missing connective details that help it stand out. The things that just happen because it's what Superman usually does end up making the story even more unhinged. It makes some of their actions seem even more irrational, like when she just takes him to the fortress, even after everything. This also isn't the only story where Clark locks them in a vault to reveal her identity when you have a powered Lois. It's his go-to move, and it never works. As always, both of them are a mess, and they deserve each other. It's true love. This simulation could have given Lois some ideas. She needs to find some red K and crush it, pour it all over Clark. This story was messy, and I loved it, because sometimes I just want to watch the world burn in terms of fictional character relationships. But this could also just be too silly and trite for some. So I want to hear from you. What do you think of Krypton Girl? Of this story? Of Lois with powers? Please share all your thoughts down below. While you're down there, please do all the YouTube things. Like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the bell notification so that you never miss a vid. Thanks so much for taking some time to spend discussing comics with me. I always appreciate it, and I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.